97.7 WKSH. You're listening to Issues That Matter. I'm Calvin Lester. Brother Jackson's not going to be with us tonight. I think he's on the road taking care of some business for our parish and our state. We wish him Godspeed and success in that. Thank you for taking some of your time this evening to spend it with us. We've got a great conversation on some issues that are of interest to you. And as always, we invite you to participate. There are several ways. You can send us an email. You can call us. The hotline number is 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459. Or if you're watching on Beyonce's internet, you can send us a message in the chat or a comment, and we would love to hear from you. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to get to the headlines right off. I have several. We're going to start on the federal level. It appears that there is some concern and question about the spouse of Justice Clarence Thomas. As many of you are aware, Judge Clarence Thomas is on the highest court of the land, the United States Supreme Court. And it has been discovered that during the January 6th insurrection, because that's what it was an attempt to overthrow the government and overthrow the peaceful transfer of power, one of the things that our democracy is built upon. The wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, Virginia, she calls herself Jenny Thomas, sent a number of text messages to the former chief of staff for the then outgoing President Donald Trump. And in these text messages, she was complaining about the election. She wanted it overturned. She even made comments like, there's no rules in war. This is war. We need to do whatever we need to do to overturn this election. Again, this was insurrection. Now, please don't misunderstand. Whatever you think about Jenny Thomas, she's not an ill-informed, ignorant woman. She is, as the old folks say, a whole lawyer, having gone to law school. So she is knowledgeable of the law. The one law that she apparently was not knowledgeable of is the only law that applies to the Supreme Court, which is that you cannot make a decision in which your spouse has something in the case of controversy. So in this case, there was a lawsuit where the federal government under the new president wanted to get, actually the Congress wanted to get information from all of those people that were sending those text messages in January 6th. And a number of those folks fought those subpoenas. Well, the Supreme Court decided that they absolutely had to turn over that information. Guess who the only person was that dissented in that opinion? That would be Clarence Thomas. The same Clarence Thomas whose wife just happened to be Chatty Cathy during the January 6th hearing, or the January 6th insurrection, which begs the question, can we trust Justice Thomas to rule fairly on these issues? I don't think so. And I'm not the only one that believes that. Senator Dick Durbin, who was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee today, said as much and suggested that not that Clarence Thomas should be removed because it's not grounds for removal, but he did say that he should recuse himself from any decisions associated with the January 6th insurrection. And at a minimum, I think that should be done. So stay tuned for that. We're going to hear some more about that. Also on the federal level today, just today, hours ago, President Joe Biden signed into law the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. Now you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, Emmett Till, that was like in the 40s. Yes, it was. And you're saying, wait a minute, there's no law against lynching? Well, up until maybe about a couple of hours ago, the answer to that was no. So you could literally have a scenario where, and it happened, and it's very important for us in Caddo Parish because Caddo Parish was back then called Bloody Caddo. It was one of those jurisdictions in the state of Louisiana where there were a number of hangings, lynchings of African Americans in this parish. In fact, interestingly enough, there's a tree in front of the courthouse, and in front of that tree is a certain monument to a certain, I don't know, war that was lost, Confederate. And in and around that place, there were a number of people that were hung that looked like a lot of our audience, including me. And so that was not against the law. You would say, well, how is lynching? It's not. It wasn't. And so it wasn't until literally hours ago that the law was passed and signed into law. So there now, for the first time in the history of this country, there is actually a law against lynching. 100 years too late, but better late than never, right? So we're excited about that. In some other local news, 12% of the electorate came out to vote to approve some taxes. Now, I thought it was interesting that the sheriff said absolutely nothing, and we talked about this on the show. The sheriff said absolutely nothing before the election. Didn't open his mouth, didn't get on the paper, didn't say a word. And we know our sheriff loves the camera and the press. And interestingly enough, now that today, what's today? Tuesday, the election was Saturday. On the front page of the Tuesday paper, the sheriff is bragging about how confident he was after the election. I just found it interesting that if he was that confident, he should have had the election in November when everybody is going to go to the polls to deal with the mayor's race, to deal with city council races, to deal with school board races. I just think there is a move afoot to have elections at times where African Americans generally don't participate. I think you will look and see that, generally speaking, African Americans turnout in spring elections is different from the fall, because generally speaking, we have our elections in the fall. And it might be interesting for you to note that some of those same folks that supported the sheriff in his tax package were also very upset with Mayor Perkins for having his election in the spring. So I don't know, if maybe it's not good for the goose, it's not good for the gander. We'll see. Other thing that I saw in local news was there were 200, I'm sorry, let me read this correctly. 211 million sports bets were placed using those betting apps during January and February. And apparently there are 7 mobile apps that are authorized for the state of Louisiana. And those 7 apps raked in $16.7 million in a month. They got $9.8 million from football. They paid out or they lost $9 million. Some of that is from the startup costs and some of that is paying out. Only 7.9% of the people who bet were winners. But the interesting piece was they paid about $2.1 million in taxes to the state of Louisiana. Of course, the question is, where's that money going? But if you extrapolate that, you're talking about if you know you have that level of activity, that's what, about $24 million a year. Now, it's probably going to be less than that in the summer because there aren't as many sports and football's not there, but you can see what's going on with that. So those are the headlines we have. We got some more coming up on the other side of the break. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with our special guest for the evening, and we're going to have a conversation with our guest about some things that are going on in the Dale of Allen. This is 97.7 WKSH, Issues That Matter. We play what we want to play, and we say what we want to say. Stick with us on the other side of this break. 97.7 WKSH. You're listening to Issues That Matter. I'm Calvin Lester, and I thank you for taking some of your hard-earned time to listen to us. And we pray that this conversation is going to be edifying and educational. And as always, we would be remiss if we didn't thank our station owner, Brother Johnny Antoine, for providing us this awesome platform with which we can reach out to you and give you this information so y'all can be aware of what's going on in the community. So thank you, Brother Antoine, so much for this whole ministry that you're doing over here at 97.7 WKSH, The Heat, doing great things. So listen, last week I was excited to participate in a community meeting in Allendale concerning a proposed affordable housing development. Of course, many of you know that some time ago, over a decade ago, I was pleased and fortunate enough to be the representative for that area on the Shreveport City Council. And so I'm always interested in seeing great things happen in Allendale. And so I attended this meeting with much interest, and also at that meeting was the personality of the one and only NJERI CAMARA. Many of you know Sister CAMARA as the president of the ALL Partnership. ALL stands for Allendale, Lakeside, Ledbetter Heights Partnership. And so we asked her to come today to talk to us and our audience about some of the things that were discussed at the meeting and some of the things in Allendale. So wouldn't want to, before we get any further, just want to thank you, Sister CAMARA, for taking some of your time to come in and share with us. How you doing this evening?
Great. Thank you so much. I was very impressed and elated that you had called and thought enough of me to have me on your show. So greetings to the audience. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We're glad to have you. So let's get right into it. So at the meeting, the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the proposal, which was, I want to say, by the Shreveport Housing Authority, and the developer is a company called ITEX, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And
Out of
Houston, Texas. Okay. And so their proposal is to do some affordable housing. And I think we all agree that we need affordable housing in our community. I don't think that's a problem that we have. But I think, at least from my perspective, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, what was your impression of the proposal? And I think the name of the proposal is Heritage Place. What was your assessment of what they proposed to folks in the community?
Well, first off, if I could just tell the audience, of course, you indicated I'm over the ALL Partnership, but we are a charitable organization committed to improving the quality of life and preserving the cultural heritage for the residents, homeowners, and property owners in the area. As it relates to the takeaway that I left the meeting with, of course, it was much anticipated for us to get the opportunity to speak with the housing authority officials as well as the contractor, the company that they've contracted with. My takeaway was that I was just very much not impressed. I was pretty much kind of let down. And, of course, if anybody listening is aware or familiar with the location of Allendale, you have the Central Business District, which is, of course, east of the river. Then immediately west to downtown is Ledbetter Heights. And immediately on the west side of that is going to be Allendale. And then, of course, west of that is Lakeside. So that's the geographical location of that area between I-20 north going up to Cross Bayou.
Okay.
Or you would consider... I'm trying to think. Swepco Park,
Right.
Arsenal Hill is what they call it. Arsenal
yes.
Hill. But we've been waiting, Mr. Lester, as you indicated, quite a number of years. We were very excited when we even heard about Heritage Place. That development, for the audience, was supposed to be a restocking the housing in the area as a result of the housing that was lost due to the I-49 construction right there where it ended on Murphy Street. And then, of course, years later, they tore down Jackson Heights. So Jackson Heights was not the only housing lost in the area. There were many multiple, single-family structure, owned homes that were lost because of that interstate coming in. And so, of course, a lot of people left the area, but many of those people were left wanting to come back to the area because that was the promise that was given. So here we are in 2022, and the developer, their presentation was very shallow, and meaning that the individuals who attended had many questions about expectations, the layout. None of that was provided to us.
Okay, let's go here.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about what they presented to the group specifically. What did they specifically present to the group in terms of their proposal for the development?
Okay, so let me give the background to the audience. Now, the city itself acquired 30 acres of land in the Allendale area. The boundaries are Abbey Street, north to Garden Street, and then bounded on the east and west by Pier Avenue and Sycamore. So all of those streets, it was promised for a lot of single-family housing. It was supposed to be gated communities, a single-family housing similar or akin to those that are built in the MLK area, in the Shepherd, that gated community, and others. I mean, that's what I've been. Now, let me say this to the audience. I've been in Allendale my entire life. And so I have a home there in Allendale. But when the promise came of new housing, I'm waiting because I had intent of buying me one of those houses. So what was presented, Calvin, unfortunately, I was very disappointed with it. It looks like a landlocked project.
Okay, so let's drill down even further. Because I was at the meeting also, full disclosure. What I saw that was proposed was duplexes. 2 houses, for those that don't know, a duplex is 2 structures under one roof. There's one roof line, there's a wall that separates it. There is living space on one side, living space on the other side. And as I appreciate it, their development is duplexes. Would that be accurate? Is that what you saw?
Yes, sir. And let me say this here, too, just for clarity's sake for the audience, Mr. Lester, you indicated they were duplexes. Let me say this to you because I came up in that area. We had shotguns and we had double barrels. So what they presented, Mr. Lester, were the double barrels.
Right. So essentially, they wanted to do double barrels in Allendale. Now, as I appreciate it now, there aren't any duplexes in Allendale. I don't believe.
Well, there are not any, I'm going to say, built within the last 20 years.
Oh, I know
All
that.
of our housing
I know
stock
that.
over there is much older. Remember now, and you indicated the Dale called Allen. Okay. And so we know that was in the area of the original incorporation of the city. That's why I was given the geographical locale so that the audience can appreciate what we're speaking of. And let me say this. Allendale, the Lakeside Allendale area in times past, I mean, it was a thriving community. This is where we had all of our, highly educated blacks that lived in that area. Dr. C.O. Simpkins. I mean, I'm just saying I could call, the list could go on.
Johnny Cochran.
Yeah, Johnny Cochran. I mean,
Street.
The list could go on in terms of that area, the importance of it, the historical significance. There are a whole host of historic sites and locations in that area. We were speaking to what I got out of the presentation. As I stated, it is 30 acres, about 5 streets.
Mm-hmm.
These are east-west streets.
Right.
With the 2 north-south streets. And I was just very disappointed because for years, and especially Mr. Lester, they're rolling this narrative in with choice neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
We know that a lot of the city received $24.2 million in 2018 for housing construction and otherwise in the Allendale, what we thought Allendale area.
We're going to get to that.
But it wound up being in the Ledbetter Heights and West Edge area. So what we got, you asked me, we didn't get anything.
Right.
And what we got the other day, last week, was a proposal that left a lot of questions, and it still left me wanting.
Okay. So I was there, and I must admit that to see, these developers come forth basically with 21st century shotgun houses, because that's essentially what it was, showed to me a fundamental lack of understanding about what the neighborhood wants, as well as a lack of understanding about the history of the neighborhood. There are very, very few shotgun houses still in existence in Allendale, and I know that because I was quite proud to tear every last one of them down when I was on city council, because I just don't believe that we need to continue to perpetuate the least in our housing. For me, I'm all for affordable housing, okay? But affordable housing should have the character and the quality of the neighborhood involved. And what I heard from a number of residents, and I'll let you speak to this, was the proposal that they were making. It wasn't that it was affordable. That wasn't the issue. It didn't look like anything associated with the neighborhood. I heard some people say they had some concerns about people having a park on the street as opposed to having carports and things of that nature. Kind of speak to those things.
Well, if I could just, as I stated, they had very limited imagery available for us to look to even try and conceive what it would look like. They didn't even have the layout of what those, what those housing structures would look like. But from the grander scope where we looked at the satellite location and they just pretty much laid out the land, as I stated earlier, it looked like they are creating a project. It looked like it's landlocked from where it's going to be.
Right.
It looks like they're just throwing something at us. It doesn't look like, to me, that really consideration has been given to the residents. And as you said, former Councilman Lester, and he was my council person also, but he said it was his desire to see every one of them torn down. Let me say this to the audience. They're building this heritage place in the area near C.C. Antoine Park. Cesar Carpentier Antoine. This man was a former lieutenant governor of the state of Louisiana, and also he served as governor interim. He's a black man, and his house is located on Perrin Street. Now, the park, Cesar C. Antoine Park, is right there in the heart of Allendale. And let me say this to everybody. Right where that park location is, I mean, it was a ocean of shotgun houses. And some of them were the double barrels, where they took 2 shotguns and they linked the bathrooms together. So you still had 2 front doors to go into one house. But anyway, so your question was what we're getting. It's sad. It does not look like what the residents had put forth, and we did a lot of meeting, a lot of charrettes to give ideas and concepts about what our expectation for the housing to look like. And as I stated, I've been sitting up here waiting on a gated community because I had intent of buying one of those houses. So what they're putting up there, they're affordable rental units. They have not outlined at this point to build any homes for sale or purchase. These have been set up for rental.
Gotcha. So look, we're going to take a break and we're going to come right back. You're listening to 97.7 Issues That Matter. I'm Calvin Lester, and we thank you for listening. Stick and stay with us on the other side of the break. Please come back. 97.7 WKSH. You're listening to Issues That Matter. I'm Calvin Lester, and I'm soloing today because Brother Jackson's out, but we have a very special guest with us. We have Sister NJERI CAMARA, who is the president of the Allendale, Lakeside, Ledbetter Heights. Well, actually, what is it? It should be Allendale. Yeah, that's right. Allendale, Lakeside, Ledbetter Heights.
Correct.
Partnership. And we're talking about a proposed development that wants to be built in Allendale, and it's called Heritage Place. One of the things that was interesting to me in the meeting, and I said this to the director of the housing authority, because he had this thing where he was talking about how folks in the community were he intimated in so many words that folks like you were Johnny come lately because they had these meetings and these decisions had been made, and now really wasn't the time for the neighborhood to come in and speak on these issues. And I thought it was funny because he is a Johnny come lately because Heritage Place is something that was actually developed and conceptualized back in the early 2000s. I know because I had something to do with it. And it was exactly what you said. Those of you that will remember Shepherd Place in the Martin Luther King community is a gated community that you can buy houses in right off of Martin Luther King and that area. And then I want to say there's Concordia Place, which is in the Stony Hill neighborhood. And so the next neighborhood that was conceptualized was Heritage Place. As a matter of fact, if the truth is completely told, Heritage Place was supposed to happen before Concordia Place. It's just that at the time, the laws associated with adjudicated property hadn't changed. One of the problems that we had in Allendale back at that time was people were leaving the property. You had these tax sale folks that were coming in from out of town, buying the property up, not doing anything with it. We literally had to talk to our state delegation, and I think at the time our state senator was Lydia Jackson, and our state representative was Roy Burrell, who's on the parish commission now. And we worked with them to change some of the rules and regulations associated with adjudicated and blighted property so that we could then amass the 30 acres that Sister CAMARA talked about so that we could do the project. Heritage Place was supposed to be single family detached. It was going to have water treatments because we showed folks the plans. There was supposed to be housing of 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 square foot, heated, kind of like, again, what you saw in Shepherd's Place. We were going to do the exact same thing, but we were just going to do it in Allendale, right? And quite frankly, the Allendale piece would have been better because the topography in Allendale is much better. You got rolling hills, you got water, you got the whole nine. There's going to be ponds and everything. Well, for many reasons, that didn't happen. And so folks were told, who have always been there, that our expectation is you're going to come back with some single family detached. Now, the world has changed many times since the early 2000s. You had the financial collapse, you had the banking deal. So dealing with affordable housing is a lot trickier because it's harder to get money. So what winds up happening is you have to pull together the money from a number of different sources. And one of those sources is, a program called low-income housing tax credits. Now, a lot of people stigmatize that because they say, low income, that's bad. But the reality of it is that's just what it's called because they haven't changed the name in years. But the people who live in those developments, you got to pay $8,000-9,000 a month rent. Yeah. So a lot of times, if you're paying, it's not subsidized.
Right.
They're thinking you're building a housing project where you pay $5 and you live in this big old house. No, you got to go to work. And so when you look at what was built in the Martin Luther King area, when you're talking about the stuff on David Raines, Rosenwald, those are single family detached. Those are houses. People pull into a carport, they got manicured lawns, the whole 9 yards. Well, if you're going to do something in Allendale, it should look like the rest of the houses. It should be nice on the outside. It should pull up. And I don't think that's asking too much. And so I think what my sense of what I saw, and I'll let Sister CAMARA speak to it, there were a number of folks in that audience that was saying, hey, our expectation is home ownership. Our expectation is single family detached. Now, we don't always get what we want. Home ownership is at the top. But if you can't do home ownership, at least give us something that looks like a home so that everybody walks around may assume that you own it. And you keep it up. Am I out of place with what y'all were thinking?
I think you are very correct. I do know, as I stated, I mean, we've got all of those people that were moved out of there, and we've got people who were grandparents, and children, they grown with children themselves now, are still waiting for the housing to be rebuilt.
Right.
And let me say this, our partnership, as of last year, we partnered with our financial institution, and we began last year having homeowner, home buyer train seminars to prepare people. And you know why we started that? Because we was waiting on Heritage Place. We was trying to have people, because I got people call me from all over everywhere, like I'm an information or resource person. And so they're wondering, when they going to build houses? This person want to buy. This person want to buy. So I'm trying to get everybody ready to buy, and we got presented duplexes for rent. So I think it's hurtful. We've already talked about that. Brother Lester, where you're indicating people who've been there consistently the whole time. Some people come and go. They miss some of the information. And I always tell people information is power. You become empowered to understand what's going on, as you stated, like y'all had to meet with your state delegation to work with the city to change up this whole notion behind the adjudicated property. And of course, that's what it was. They had to amass properties that were contiguous so that they could build a development. And so it's just unfortunate. That's all I could say. I mean, we're happy that some movement, we're seeing something transpire. I think that's what you said. Better to be happy that you get something than to be sad that you get nothing.
Well, but at the same time, I don't think that the neighborhood should accept foolishness. And I think duplexes in Allendale is foolishness. And that's not something that I would support. And the sense that I got from the folks in the room was that was not something that they would support. I mean, is that factual?
Well, that's true. We, of course, a lot of our board members were there, and we've had conversations since the whole thing. And so everybody was disappointed because we've just been hearing this talk about the C.C. Antoine Park expansion. Right. So if you keep telling us under Choice Neighborhood, this is C.C. Antoine Park expansion, but what you're doing is nowhere near the park.
Right.
It's in the vicinity, but it's not. So I'm saying you get these false narratives. People keep hearing stuff, and we're looking for something. So when they came and presented, I was really very disappointed because I was looking for single-family homes. I'm looking for where's this gated community that I'm waiting to purchase one of those houses. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm glad that you're having this, that you chose to have this conversation with us, Brother Lester, because myself, personally, I'm a person who believes that we need to embrace and celebrate what is our own. Now, you didn't tell me to say this, but do you run Grace Project for your church?
I work with that organization, yes,
okay,
ma'am,
but
I
I'm
do.
just saying, so that organization does housing.
We do.
I don't know why we had to go to Houston to get, and we've got a entity right in the neighborhood.
Right.
That has built nice homes right in the neighborhood. Right. And so, of course, that's how people do business. They could choose to use whomever they choose to spend their dollars with.
Right. I mean, so let's be clear. This project, this development is only a proposal. They don't have the money. if you listen to what they said they submitted a proposal to the Louisiana Housing Corporation, and if people object to it, they have every right to write to the Housing Corporation and say we object to it. And so that's something that Grace has had a conversation with our board, and we're not in favor of those duplexes. And I'm quite certain our board chairman has said that he was going to send a letter to the Louisiana Housing Corporation, making it clear that that's not something that Grace supports, because we want to see, at the end of the day, again, no one is against fair, affordable housing. The issue is, does the character of the housing that you're bringing to this neighborhood fit what's already there? Does it lift the standard? Does it make everything else look better? Does it lift up so it's aspirational to make everybody want to make their game better? Or are you just throwing something down just to say you throw something down and go on to the next thing? It's kind of like I said to the developer, you're building this, but guess what? Y'all in Houston, we're going to have to drive by this every day, sometimes 4 or 5 times a day, at least twice, leaving to go to work, coming back home. And why would you want to put something in a neighborhood that has that level of pride that does not help lift that neighborhood? I've never understood people that want to do things like that.
Yeah, Brother Calvin, you're correct. And again, as I stated after that meeting, I did my due diligence. I keep my community educated on what's going on. So I did talk with several people, homeowners in that vicinity around there. They had no knowledge of it.
Right.
So I don't understand if the city is, well, it's actually the housing authority of the city of Shreveport that's trying to propose it. But I'm saying people that I know who got property around that, I got on the horn. They had no knowledge of it. So I thought that was sad as well.
Right. No, I one of the concerns I had, again, sitting through the meeting, he alluded to the fact that, we had all of these meetings and charrettes. I think one of the things that I thought was disingenuous, quite frankly, was this idea that, they want the best for the neighborhood, and they had talked to people, and some of those people just weren't there. And I was like, look, man, let's go back. You made a point. You talked about choice neighborhoods. And, of course, choice neighborhoods is where we are today in 2022. Before we had choice neighborhood, we had total commitment. Before we had total commitment, we had Allendale 1. And before we had Allendale 1, it was the Allendale study. There have been, this goes back to when I was on the council, my first term, like in 2003. So, yeah. So this, as a matter of fact, before I got on the council, there was conversation about redeveloping Jackson Heights as a Hope 6, like they redid in New Orleans, the Desire Housing Project. That's what it was. That's what was supposed to happen, right? And so I want to say when Jackson Heights was finally was leveled, which would have been about 2004, I think, 2003, 2004, maybe 2005, the neighborhood thought, okay, well, you're tearing it down. Now, normally when you tear something down, you replace it with something. But the replacement just hadn't seemed to get there. It's as if you scattered everybody, tore it down to make it easy to run the interstate through. And, you built on that property. What is that place
called? It's called Renaissance.
The Renaissance,
Allendale.
right.
And
but you only built one phase.
One phase.
Because there was supposed to be like 2 or 3 phases.
That's right. And it was supposed that what was presented to us about that Renaissance at Allendale, there was a section of homes for the handicapped. They would all be single story.
Correct.
And then there would be a section for the elderly.
Correct.
All of that was laid out and
multi-generational. It was supposed to be multi-generational.
It was presented. And so that's what we were looking for.
Right.
They did the Renaissance and they stopped.
Correct.
They didn't do the other piece. They let all of that land that they pulled up. it done grew into a mountain now.
Right.
It's grown trees
Right.
and everything else. It was
Right.
dirt that was supposed to be
Right.
leveled out. And let me just say this while we're speaking to it, Brother Calvin, because you were indicating about this is the housing authority of the city of Shreveport. And I dare say Wilkerson Terrace, the same projects, was on Southern Avenue. I think those apartments were torn down maybe 3 years ago.
Something like that.
They got new houses going up over there already. So to me, it's a matter of political will. There was not the will to come over in Allendale and put housing in legitimately. Because why? Like Brother Ben Lester said, that is a very desired and favored geographical locale in this city. The people who live there, we just don't know because it's so dilapidated to us. But it once was a thriving community. Everything that we desire was within walking distance.
Correct.
So that's my memory of it. And so
Right.
I'm still hoping to see that revived.
Right. Well, certainly it's a vision that's worth fighting for, and we thank you for coming on the show tonight to talk some more about your fight. And you know, as these things happen, as we had these community meetings, we certainly would love to bring you back to kind of keep our viewers and our listeners involved with what's going on in Allendale Lakeside Ledbetter Partnership. Before I let you go,
Okay, sure.
Shameless plug, tell us if you are someone that lives in Allendale, Ledbetter, or Lakeside Acres, how can they get involved in the All Partnership? When are y'all meeting? What's that? How does it work?
So the partnership, the actual general membership is quarterly.
Okay.
The board, we have a 15-member board. We have advisors, persons who represent other entities
Right.
that are in the community who are part of it. But we also have our elected board members. Excuse me. Just so happens we are having our first quarterly meeting. It'll be our annual meeting, and we'll lay out our annual calendar. It will be this Thursday, March 31st, beginning at 5:30 p.m. at Andrew Curry Park Community Center. Now, it's going to be a twofold thing. It's going to be a tech academy where we have the young people coming in to teach us more senior people how to use these handheld devices, whether it's a Apple Watch, or the iPhone, the Android, because you know children, they make a difference in an Android and the iPhone.
Right.
I just call it a phone.
Right.
But anyway, so we are having that exchange, the intergenerational conversation
Right.
over dinner, while the younger people are teaching the older people how to use their cellular devices more efficiently. You could bring a laptop, an iPad, whatever you have that you need help with. And you're free to give a call to, I'm going to give you the name of our secretary and her number, as well as my name and my telephone number. On my flyer, I have my vice president, but his job has him out of town this week. So if you're interested in being a part of the Allendale Lakeside Ledbetter Heights Partnership, please, sir, please, ma'am, give a call to. The number is 318-820-9334. That is Miss Mamie Robinson. She serves as the secretary. I am NJERI CAMARA, the president. My number is 318-317-5918, and you're free to call now. If you're interested in participating in this Tech Academy this Thursday, please feel free to call the Andrew Curry Park. They're open each afternoon so they'll be open tomorrow evening until 6. Everybody, just Google Andrew Curry Park Community Center and call and tell them you're calling to RSVP to ensure that we have sufficient dinner prepared for those persons who have specified that they would be coming. But our membership dues are $5 a month or $60 a year. It just helps us get stuff done. This past in December, we had a fruit bowl giveaway, so we gave fruit bowls away to the elderly, and then we had a clothing giveaway. We allowed young people to come in and shop and help wrap gifts so that they could take it home to their family members. So we got a lot of stuff coming up, as we stated.
Well, we thank you for your activity in the community, and certainly want to have you back. We'll have you back, and don't be surprised if at one of those meetings, Brother Antoine sets up, and because he has a real good habit of coming out to community functions and giving them some needed publicity that they have. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Issues That Matter. Thank you for your kind attention. We pray that this was a great conversation, that you were able to learn something from it. Stick and stay with us on the other. Well, that's it. We go. I'm saying I'm going to the break mode. No, we're going to be back, and we'll be back on Thursday. We'll have a great show for you then. Thank you for listening. Y'all have a great evening.